Hey everybody, how's it going? I wanted to try a little something new, a little different platform for blogging purposes. Instead of writing something up, I've been wanting to do this for a while, do some videos, do some whiteboarding. Um, like I say, instead of writing this up, I really wanted to get in front of the whiteboard and kind of go through this. I ran into a scenario this past week where I needed the ability to extend a layer 2 VLAN over into a VXLAN. There's a number of options that you can do with that. You can do migrations. You can extend from the physical to the virtual world and run all of your components in virtual under VXLAN. This function is built into NSX. I ran into a few little snags, but I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I just wanted to whiteboard it out to give you an idea of what you need to do. I wasn't able to find anything in the quick Googling and all that great stuff that I wanted to be able to pinpoint how to actually do this. I reached out to a couple people, and many thanks to those that responded back. Like I say, there's not a lot of information out there at this point on NSX. There's some great blogs, but I wanted to specifically whiteboard this scenario to maybe help someone else out. So instead of reading, you might actually have someone speaking and doing a whiteboard. And I'm always open to other ideas and suggestions and questions and all that great stuff. But again, I've been looking for a reason to go about this platform, whiteboarding on camera. So I figured I might as well give it a shot and see how it works out. So hopefully it helps you out. So anyway, the purpose of this whole conversation here is with the NSX being deployed now, it's starting to gain momentum, of course. You may hear talks of the ability to do these types of things where you want to take your physical, you still want to have physical systems and have the ability to extend those VLANs over into VXLAN, over into the virtual world, and be able to run things such as DHCP services in VXLAN segments, and have the ability to have DHCP services available to your physical world. Or you might want to just simply do this for a migration. Say you want to migrate some VMs from a non-VXLAN environment over into a new environment that's running in VXLAN under NSX, and you don't want to change IPs. You want to be able to keep those IPs and have them still communicate with on a layer 2 segment. Be able to have connectivity across those boundaries and be able to not have to get crazy and re-IP everything potentially, which, I mean, that's fine, but maybe you have the reason not to. Maybe you have firewalls, you have load balancers and things like that that may need to still maintain those IPs. You want to keep those components to not have to be reconfigured. There's many different reasons for this. Like I say, I just wanted to whiteboard this out real quick. So let's see how this goes, and hopefully everything shows up good on the camera. This is my first time trying with this camera, so we'll see how it goes. I know the audio is probably not that great, but we'll see. Maybe if this works out well, we'll get a little more better equipment in my lab and such. So anyway, so real quick, so for instance, you have your, so again, this is going to be leveraging NSX L2 bridge as a gateway. So you've got your new NSX environment over in this area, and everything's running in VXLAN, NSX on your 5.5 hosts. And again, speaking of that, this is NSX-V. I think that the process might be a little bit different than multi-hypervisor, but right now we're talking about NSX-V for vSphere. VXLAN. So again, I'm going to use this scenario of your hosts, it's not a very good box, are all running under VXLAN, and you've got your external switches over here that are potentially doing L2 to top of rack, doing L3. You've got your L2 switches here that your hosts are plugging into. Those could be trunk ports, they could be straight up just switch ports, whatever they need to be. Anyway, you're obviously doing VLAN tagging and such, and you know NSX requires its VLAN for the VTEPs and all that to run within. So right now we're just going to talk about extending a layer 2 VLAN to VXLAN. So over here in this world, you might have your 5.1 environment, and you've got all your hosts running over here, and they're going to another switch up here with the connections, and that's your top of rack. And you've got some VLANs over here that say they're like 106, 107, 108, etc. Again, these are VLANs, so you're talking about L2 boundaries here. We want to be able to extend, for instance, 106 VLAN over to VXLAN. So what we would do to accomplish this is, number one, we would create a new logical switch in NSX, and you could call it VXLAN 106, and it might have a VNI of 3,000 or 5,000, whatever it may be. We want to be able to extend from here to here and keep the same subnet. So we're going to say we're going to run a 10.0.106.0/24 subnet, and we want to be able to have devices communicate from this VXLAN 106 over to VLAN 106 on the same L2 network. So again, you would create your logical switch in NSX, and we're going to call it VXLAN 106. It's not really 106. Like I say, it uses a VNI number. So we're going to take and make sure that 106 VLAN from over here is tagged all the way up through your top of rack switch, and it will obviously be connected over into your new environment over here for NSX deployment. So the tag 106, we're going to tag 106. We're going to tag, make sure that all of our uplinks have tag of 106 all the way down to our uplinks into our hosts that are running NSX. So what that allows us to do is to create a VDS port group with a VLAN tag of 106 in our 5.5 environment. So with that, now we have access into this environment to VLAN 106, which is just tagging up through your backbone there. We've got 106 here. Now we can create a DLR, because you have to create, to do an L2 bridge, you have to do a DLR, not an NSX edge gateway. It's a DLR, so distributed logical router. And what we'll do is we'll create a DLR with, in this case, in my scenario, I added no interfaces to the DLR because I'm just bridging two networks. So you create a new DLR, and you're going to deploy that out of NSX Manager, new DLR, and then you're going to go to a tab within the DLR, and I'll actually put a screenshot of what this looks like along with the blog post so you can see the area I'm speaking of. So your DLR on a tab, it's called bridge, and I'm just going to give that bridge a name, and we're going to say like VXLAN, or actually I'm going to do VLAN 106 to VXLAN 106, and then under our logical switches setting, we're going to select our new VXLAN logical switch, VXLAN 106 for the logical switch. For the distributed port group, we're going to select VLAN 106. Man, that's some terrible writing. I know, I'm kind of writing at an angle here trying to make sure I don't get in front of the camera. VLAN 106 for the distributed port group on that DLR. And that is going to be coming from this, which is tagged 106. So what that is going to do, this DLR is going to bridge the gap between VLAN 106 and VXLAN 106, which is running all in this new environment. So now that you've done that piece, you should be able to have VMs or physical systems. It doesn't have to be a VM environment. I'm using this for example. You might actually have a physical system sitting out here that's on 10.0.106 subnet. It doesn't matter because that's going to be tagged up through the switch, the core, and all that great stuff, right? So the DLR is bridging that gap between this subnet layer 2 VLAN to a layer 2 VXLAN 106. Again, the VXLAN is not really 106. It has a VNI number. So what we can do at this point, because typically you obviously would have a VLAN gateway address assigned in your top of rack switch or your core, which would be your gateway for this VLAN, which is probably .1. Well, it gets tricky because there's a couple things you can do. You want to run DHCP services, for example, out of this environment. You would either have to do your IP helper settings to change those on the VLAN on your switch to point to the DHCP server that you want to provide those IPs. Well, with 6.1, NSX 6.1, the DHCP relay agent can be added not only to an edge, to an ESG, an edge service gateway, or a DLR. Now, this is new. So what that means is I can run DHCP agent relay off of the DLR. That gets complicated too because I haven't yet to find out a way to be able to bridge two networks on this distributed port group and this VXLAN for this subnet and add an interface to be able to relay those DHCP requests off to your DHCP servers, which may be over here. So what I did in my scenario, which you may want to do as well, is you might actually have another DLR that's deployed just add an interface. Add an interface for VXLAN 106 and assign it. Now you're going to get an IP conflict if you're not careful. So VXLAN 106 and say if you can temporarily shut down those services. I mean, if you can't, you could do it real quick. But what the goal of this is to assign this interface as the gateway. Of 106.1 and remove this and taking this out of the equation So you can start moving all of your services into NSX and have that everything virtualized in this environment. So once you have that interface assigned as your gateway for this subnet, now everything is now going to route through here. Now you also have to make sure that you have an IP route statement in your top of rack if you're going to be sending off that subnet over to this DLR. So for instance, you might have this other interface that is maybe you're using this DLR to bridge some other networks together. Say it already has an existing IP or whatever. Say it's 105.1. Man, that's terrible. 105.1. Anyway, you know, you do your IP route, subnet 106.0/24. Send it to 10.0.105.1. That's one option you can do, or you can just have it be extended because that gateway is going to be on that same logical layer 2 logical subnet. That was really complicated for what the point was in this. Anyway, back to what I was getting at. Now you can set up your DHCP relay from here and have it assigned to this interface. So anything being requested off of that layer 2 subnet, or that segment of 106, you're going to ship off to your DHCP servers. Now you can do DHCP services between your VLAN and your VXLAN of 106. It'll all funnel through the additional DLR that can do the DHCP relay for those segments. Again, there's a lot of gibberish, or maybe it's really not that complicated. I just really wanted to go through and kind of go over what this scenario looks like to be able to give you an idea, so you had a whiteboard and some conversation around it, because like I say, I was not able to truly find anything. Not saying it's not out there, I wasn't able to find anything quick enough to be able to pull this off. The one thing is, you really need a good understanding of your underlying network, all your switches that come into play here, because if you have, say you've got additional top of rack and you have additional L2 switches here, and they're all trunking in to your new environment, and you miss tagging these VLANs up through this environment, these additional set of switches, you might not be able to communicate. Speaking from experience, I actually ran into that. So make sure you've mapped out all of your infrastructure, and that you have truly identified every path that your network takes to get from here to here, and make sure that everything is tagged correctly, so you can pull this off. And again, you know, disregard some of this. I actually went this route instead of just letting everything, because I had a lot of other routes that were coming into play, and I really didn't want to make a lot of changes. So anyway, that's really what it boils down to. Again, this is doing layer 2 bridging with NSX. Very simple, a lot of complication here, just a lot of components, but it works great. And again, this will allow you to do many things. You can start your migrations from VLAN to VXLAN, not have to change IPs, be able to take additional VMs from other VLANs and start bridging those gaps. And obviously, as you get rid of these VLANs over in here in your legacy environment, you might want to start whacking those things out and taking those bridges out and just relying on VXLAN totally at that point. Again, that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully it made sense. Hopefully I didn't make it overcomplicated. And hopefully I didn't really confuse anybody when I got into all this other nonsense here. So anyway, hopefully it worked out well. Leave me feedback. Let me know if this works. I've got many other ideas I want to start going through and some videos and some whiteboarding, because I really, not that I don't enjoy writing. I really enjoy talking, of course. But I like to be able to do some kind of presentation on the whiteboard, and I love the whiteboard. So, you know, as we all do. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.